All right, everybody, this is Shaka Zulu again. This is part 6 of my PowerPoint presentation, Segregation Disguised as Integration. This is the part where Malcolm X is warning us not to integrate with these beasts, with these people. And this is before it passed. He was warning us not to join this beast. And I'm showing it for a reason. So here we go.
Don't you know that if the man, the white man, doesn't want us to pack our goods and leave him, and he doesn't, he's afraid you might get back home and start remembering what happened to you over here. He can't take a chance. You don't think that you'll get like that. Long as you're sitting in a whiskey house drunk, brother, you can't see anything but that whiskey. But when you leave that saloon and start to sober up, you can't even stand the smell of that which formerly intoxicated you. If you can see with your intelligence that it's impossible for us to leave, and it's also impossible for us to stay as other than a servant, are you willing to remain a servant? And if you think that integration will solve it, Thurgood Marshall himself has admitted that it is 7 years since the Supreme Court desegregation decision, and here in America you still have only 6% desegregation. You can't tell me because 2 black students are going to the University of Georgia that that's integration. Well, you got 1 million black people in Georgia. You can't tell me that 4 little black children in the white school system of New Orleans, Louisiana is integration. You can't tell me that a handful of black children going to school with white people in Little Rock, Arkansas is integration. That's token integration. And what is a token? If you go outside and get on the streetcar, you put a token in the box. That token takes the place of money. Token is a substitute. Token is artificial. Token is not the real thing. And when the white man gives you token integration, it's like a pacifier that you give to your little baby when it starts crying. You pacify that little black baby to keep it from crying, but you don't give it milk. You give it a substitute. You give it what looks like milk. Do you understand that? So now the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has shown us where the white man here in America is doing the same thing right now with the black man. He's giving you and me a token form of integration. And this token integration automatically already is meeting with rebelliousness from white people. They don't even want token integration. They turn Little Rock upside down to keep out token integration. They turn Georgia University upside down to keep out token integration. While the white women went crazy in New Orleans, Louisiana, over token integration. What do you think they would do if a black man had not enough to stand up and ask for the real thing? Why, that white man would go crazy, sure enough.
He was warning us. Malcolm X was warning us. He was talking about integration and how we would end up in a way worse position than we was during segregation. I'm not saying segregation was the it, but it was better than this. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm coming towards the end of my PowerPoint presentation. Now, this is Martin Luther King. I love Martin Luther King. When I found out certain things about Martin Luther King about 2 years ago, I didn't like Dr. King anymore. But around this time, I realized why he got killed. And you know, he regretted a lot of things, and he about to speak on it, how he had to do some soul searching. And I used to call him a sellout, but Martin Luther King didn't. I take it that he didn't know any better, because once he realized how them white folks was using him to further this integration, which was to destroy the black family, the black dollar, the black economics or whatever, I don't think that he knew their true intentions. And so He became a revolutionary that last 18 months of his life. So I'm going to play this right here. And this is Martin Luther King talking about how the dream that he had became a nightmare.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
That was in 1963, this speech right here.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation. I'm not going to say that all of our problems will be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended, but I do say that the war makes it infinitely more difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. There is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. Didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something. I feel that nonviolence is really the only way that we can follow, because violence is just so self-defeating. A riot ends up creating many more problems for the Negro community than it solves. You can, through violence, burn down a building, but you can't establish justice. You can murder a murderer, but you can't murder through violence. You can murder a hater, but you can't murder hate. And what we are trying to get rid of is hate and injustice.
That's real.
All of these other things that continue the long night of man's inhumanity to man. Let freedom reign, and when this happens, when we allow freedom reign, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
You see, Martin Luther King, it wasn't even supposed to have been Martin Luther King as we know. It's supposed to have been a man by the name of Bayard Rustin that was the leader of the civil rights movement in the 1950s. But he got caught in the back seat of a car in Pasadena, California in 1957 getting fellatio. If you don't know what that means, he was getting oral sex from 2 flaming hot butt bandits. So it was a scandal. So he could not be used by the crackers, by the powers to be, to be the face and the leader of the civil rights movement. And what Bayard Rustin did was court Martin Luther King to take his place. That's a whole nother presentation. So Martin Luther King, I wouldn't necessarily call him a sellout, even though he did some sellout stuff in the beginning, because he worked for the government. They paid him to march on Washington, to give that speech in Washington, D.C. in 1963 that you just seen at the end of that video. But at the end of the day, I don't think Martin Luther King knew what he was getting into. He did some sellout stuff, like I just said, but I don't think he was a sellout. And because, like I said, he wanted to do some soul searching, like he just said on that video. And he did have a dream, because he thought little white girls and black boys and black girls could walk around and hold hands. And it wasn't that type of world. He understood the racism and the politics that played a role in the civil rights movement. He seen it was a strategy to break up black people and the black families and to have what you see to this day. So let me go to the next slide. This is the last slide. This is Harry Belafonte, that was a friend of Martin Luther King, and he's speaking on the dream. And he's speaking to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama when he was a candidate, when he was a senator in 2005. It's the last slide.
You know, the last thing Dr. King said to me before he was murdered was in my home when we were sitting planning strategy for the Poor People's Campaign, which was on the horizon of the politics of the day. Martin said, you know, I've been thinking long and hard about our struggle. We worked tenaciously for our rights. And the culmination of all that effort will be reflected in what we've come to call the integration movement. And I sit here deeply concerned that I suspect we're leading our nation on an integration trip that has us integrating into a burning house. For Dr. King to have been in this place at a time when we seem to be making great headway was a moment to pause and reflect. That reflection has taken longer than I had suspected it would, but it has certainly come to reveal itself fully when we look at the condition in which we find not only our world, but in particular, our nation. We have a lot of wreckages around this country. And perhaps the most distracting and perhaps the most important wreckage to take a look at is really the wreckage of the Democratic Party.
Don't be shaking your head, Hillary. He talking about you.
Get him to the stage.
I've been a Democrat all my life. I have no treaty with the Republicans, nor do I really seek one. But the Democratic Party was not always our friend.
It still ain't.
In fact, a lot of what we had to struggle against was in the possession and the power of Democrats who came from the South. And when we showed them the tenaciousness and the conviction and the sense of great purpose that the people of this nation had into transforming our condition, all those Democrats from the South ran off and became Republicans as an
There's really no difference.
Act of punishment for what we were trying to achieve as a people. And that punishment continues to play itself out. What eludes us is the bankruptcy of the action itself. This country reveals its moral decay every day of its existence. Our prisons, the largest prison system in the world, are filled with those who are the victims of poverty.
Exactly.
The women who are disenfranchised, young teenage mothers, are victims of poverty. Poverty is knocking at our door all day long. It sits in the mirror for us to look in every morning. When we look at what's going on with the schools in this country, we build more prisons than we build schools. We have more young black men and women in the prisons of America than we have in the universities. Poverty is in our face all day long. Why is everybody behaving all of a sudden like this is some great revelation?
Are you sure? Are you right now?
And I'll tell you something, there's a lot of people out here who are really pissed off. We are angry, we're upset, we're sad, we hold our children, we wheel our wheelchairs, we look around for some comfort, and we don't find any. Well, we have to look to ourselves.
That's right.
Because I think the last frontier of truth and hope in this country are the people themselves. We look at these things in terms of sound bites and short-term efforts. It's going to take longer than that. And I think we have to serve notice that we're looking for a second party. Some people suggested two exist. I say there's really one. It comes in various grades of difference.
Exactly. Go ahead, Harry. That's the truth right there.
The American people have some decisions to make. Our foreign policy has made a wreck of this planet. And when I move to these places, I see American policy written on the walls of oppression everywhere. We don't need an independent committee to find out what happened and what is happening to this country. Our last independent committee told us. And Bush and the arrogance of these people to go off again and play the same scenario because they know that we ain't gonna make a difference before they want to go has to be changed. We have to give them a call to a new awakening. We know when they give a contract, a no-bid contract to Halliburton, we know what they did when they gave that contract to Halliburton in Iraq. We know what they do when they suspend minimum wage and go out and get immigrants to come in and to do the dirty work.
That's right. And we don't understand it or see it.
And in suspending the minimum wage are setting black people and brown people and immigrants and men and women against one another.
That's right.
When we should in fact be uniting.
This is after integration.
And while the Black Caucus celebrates this moment, while we have all these wonderful black leaders and our white progressive associates.
Don't be smiling, Heifer. He talking to you, Hillary.
That we would get off the rhetoric, get off the redundancy, and dig deep into this country.
It's crazy. That's the end of my presentation. Segregation disguised as integration. And I told y'all I'll give y'all my contact information at the end of this presentation. And my phone number, I don't mind giving my phone number out. My phone number is 919-298-0272. That's 919-298-0272. My email address is ZuluNation80@gmail.com. ZuluNation80@gmail.com. You can contact me through Facebook. My name on Facebook is Jomarin Harris. Joemarin. That's my first name, Jomarin. Joemarin. Last name Harris. Harris. And you'll see Shaka Zulu in parentheses. And you'll see my book cover or whatever, but that's my contact information. Hopefully, y'all looked at part 1 through part 6, and you would see what integration had done to us and civil rights. It turned our women against us. Not every black woman is the same. But when the women got welfare in 1964, when they passed the Welfare Reform Act, that took the place of the man being the provider. Psychologically, in the woman's mind, fast forward today, I don't need a man for nothing. An N can't do anything for me. I met a female I not met a female, but I know a female that told me one day, she said, really, you really don't need a man at all. He just make the baby. Really, the woman could raise the child by herself. And that same woman that said that if I seen her, I'll get as far away as possible. But thank y'all for looking at my PowerPoint presentation. I love y'all. I'm gonna subscribe to my channel, my YouTube channel, Shaka Zulu. And you can find it through this video or Exposing Shirley Caesar's Church. Either one of those videos, you can find my channel. Subscribe to my channel. I upload videos every other week, and it's very informative. Thank y'all. I love my people. Hotep. That's the African word for peace.